Wolfpack fans, welcome to this week's edition of Wolfpack Watch. This is the after Woodstock Wolverine game, and we are here again with Coach Bryant to talk about that game and the upcoming game here at the Den against Campbell. Coach, you're now 4-0 coming off a 24-12 win at Woodstock. Talk generally about that game on Friday.
Well, our defense came out and they did a great job. Their quarterback is really athletic, throws the ball really well. But I thought our secondary did a great job of covering down the field, and our front seven got pressure on them and hit them a lot all night, which was in the back of his mind every time he got ready to throw or got ready to run. And then offensively, Ross came out and had great protection from his offensive line. Rarely got touched standing back there. And then, Preston Rogers and Coven Harvey did a good job running the ball, giving us a little balanced attack. And then we had 8 different receivers catch passes that night, and special teams wise, everything panned out special teams wise. Q Carter had a couple of great returns on kickoff return, and then after pregame, Brock struggled a little bit in pregame, and then I talked to him a little bit, and he got his head settled down, and came out and made a field goal, made his extra points, and did a great job punting and kicking off.
Talk a little bit about that running attack. I did notice as I watched the game that we did run the ball probably better than we have all year. Was that a concerted effort going in? Did we want to attack that way with the type of defense they played, or did it just come about as part of the game?
Well, we tell our guys all the time that, the 2 main things that we want to be able to do every Friday night is run the football and stop the run. And if we can do those 2 things, that we feel like we'll be successful every Friday night. Just so happens that we hadn't been running the ball successfully, from 100 to 200 yards rushing the game, which I told them if we ran for 200 yards that we win the game by 2 touchdowns. And a couple of the jet sweeps that Jared Ray ran were actually counted as passes because we pitched it forward, but we had to run block on the perimeter and inside with our offensive line. So with those two forward passes, if we count them as runs, we had over 200 yards rushing Friday night. And I think our offensive line did a great job. Coach Hines, our O-line coach, does a great job and rotates. We rotated in 10 offensive linemen Friday night, and we rotated in 8 wide receivers and 2 backs, so and 2 quarterbacks. So offensively, I feel like we're building a lot of depth going into our region in a couple of weeks.
And in the passing game, I know Ross had 3 touchdown passes, 2 of them long, the shuttle pass to Jared, and then the long one to Tanner Bentley right before the end of the half. Talk about the passing game. He looked pretty comfortable back there.
He did, and Ross wouldn't tell anybody this, but he didn't practice Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday this week, and it wasn't by his own doing. He wanted to practice Wednesday and Thursday, but I wouldn't let him practice because he had a minor surgery on Tuesday, and still wanted to practice Wednesday and Thursday, but I sat him out of practice. I told him I didn't need him Wednesday or Thursday, I needed him on Friday. And then Friday, I saw him stretching a little bit before the game, and wasn't looking real good stretching, but he said, Coach, I don't need to stretch on the field. All I have to do is sit back there and throw, and that's what he did Friday night. He threw the ball, I thought, as well in the first half as he's thrown all year.
Talk a little bit about one of the things that I've noticed in the last 3 games, and I don't know, how concerning this is to you. I give you this question, you give the answer. But the last 3 games in the second half, I think we've scored a combined total of 14 points. Is our offense different in the first half versus second half? Are you guys changing anything to where we're just not as efficient in the second half, or are we just not executing?
We're just not executing right now in the second half. And that's what we talked about at halftime, that if we play the way we did in the first half versus East Paulding, the first and second half every game, we never lose a game.
Absolutely.
But if we play the way we did in the second half versus East Paulding, we never win a game. So we've got to figure out a way to keep those guys playing at a high level in the second half. And right now, defensively, we didn't give up another touchdown in the second half, but offensively, we only scored once. So, we've got to be able to continue to move the chains in the second half as an offense and keep our defense off the field and help those guys. They're doing a great job keeping teams off the scoreboard for the most part. I think that's 3 second half shutouts that we had this year. The only team that scored on us in the second half was East Paulding, and they scored a bunch. So, that's concerning for us, and we're trying to work on it and get better every week. And it's not a deficiency; it's just things that we're not executing in the second half right now. If we start executing in the second half the way we've been doing in the first half, then we're going to be fine.
And I would echo those statements. Talk about your players of the game from this week. You had on defense, you had number 26 cornerback Noah ALLEYNE. I believe he had 8 tackles, 5 solo, 3 assisted, and 4 pass breakups or 3 pass breakups. You had your offensive player of the game, JAROD Ray, 4 catches, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then your special teams player of the game was LICQUANTA Harris, number 4, and he had 2 kickoff returns for 72 yards. You mentioned that. And then he played defense as well, had 4 tackles, 2 solo, 2 assisted, 4 pass breakups, and then the tackle for loss. Talk about how well they played Friday night.
Well, we'll start with our special teams play. Carter Harris, a great all-around player. We got to figure out a way to get him on the field more offensively and get him the ball. But putting him in as a returner back there with JAROD Ray on kickoff returns has really sparked our return game. They can't just focus on JAROD. He had a really good return at the beginning of the game, almost broke it for a touchdown. We'll get him on the bungees next week, up his speed a little bit for the next one. But also he played great on defense. Our outside 2 corners with him and Noah ALLEYNE were pretty much shut down their outside receivers. And I think we had 1 busted coverage all night, and between those 2 had 8 or 9 pass breakups, and then tackles on the perimeter when they were running swings to the tailback and the quarterback was running. Those 2 guys did a great job defensively of shutting down their outside receiving game and making tackles on the perimeter. And then JAROD Ray, was special teams player of the week a few weeks ago. He just gives us another element on offense that if we can get him the ball in space, then he can make things happen on the perimeter. Fast, really fast kid. We've got his neck stretched. We're trying to stretch him as much as we can. We want to get him a couple of inches. Yeah, but we wouldn't trade any one of those kids for anybody. All 3 of them. I told JAROD when he got his catch on the jet sweep and was running down the sideline, he looked like he was running 100 meters in track. He had that head down. He was just going. He stepped across and scored at the end. And all 3 of those kids are hard workers as well as really good kids. And those are our 3 players of the week this week.
Hey there, Pack fans. It's time now for our Player of the Game segment from our most recent game played at Woodstock last Friday. Our 3 players of the game, number 12, JAROD Ray. He's the offensive player of the game. Our defensive player of the game is Noah ALLEYNE. Number 26, he's our cornerback. And our special teams player of the game, number 4, LICQUANTA Harris. First, we'll start with JAROD. JAROD, this is now your 2nd player of the game segment this year. How's that make you feel?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? How'd that Woodstock game go for you last week?
It was good. Had 2 TDs. Felt really good.
Yeah, so for the stats for JAROD here, he had 4 catches, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and 1 long one. I believe that one was around 75, 80 yards, right?
80 yards, yes, sir.
Yep. And how'd it feel going down the sidelines? About the same as that kickoff return early in the year?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And how is it this year playing for this North squad versus your past with playing over at East?
It's pretty good. I like it over here.
A little different over here?
Yeah.
And I know I haven't gotten
different.
to talk to you since the East game. How did that game make you feel?
Oh, it
taking
felt
down
good.
East?
Yes, sir. It felt really good.
So that's probably the game of the year for you right now,
yes,
isn't it?
sir.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, JAROD.
Thank you.
Good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Let's turn it over to LICQUANTA. LICQUANTA is our special teams player of the week. He had 2 kickoff returns for 72 yards. Also on defense, he had 4 tackles, 2 solo, 2 assisted, 4 pass breakups, and 1 tackle for loss. LICQUANTA, how'd you feel about that Woodstock game?
I felt really good.
And you coming over from Paulding County last year, a little bit different over here at North?
Yes, sir. It's a lot different. Better people, a little bit better people.
And how have you enjoyed the coaching staff over here?
They're great. I love them.
We're 4 games into the season. You're 4-0. Probably a little bit different outcomes than what you're used to over at Paulding County. Not
Yes,
to
sir.
say anything bad about them, but there's a little bit different territory
Yes, sir.
over here.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed your time here so far?
Yes, sir. I like the hard work. Everybody tries hard, and I like that because I like to win. So I
We've
love
got
that mentality.
the game coming up here in the Den Friday night against Campbell, and then we got
Sir.
the region games. How much are you looking forward to those region games coming up?
Looking forward to them really. Like I just want to win. I just want to play hard and win. Get us some dubs.
So far, so good. We thank you for joining us. Turn it over to Noah
Thank you.
over there.
Thank you.
Noah is our defensive player of the game, number 26, one of our corners. He had 8 tackles, 5 solo, 3 assisted, and he had 3 pass breakups during the game at Woodstock on Friday. Noah, thanks for joining us. Noah, you're a junior this year. You've been in the North Paulding program for quite a few years. How have you enjoyed this program over the years?
I've really just, love all the friendship and the kindness that everyone showed me coming up through all the years.
Yeah, because I covered you in middle school. I know I did a few of the announcing for the middle school games as you played. How has it felt this year being on the varsity squad, contributing every week
It
in
feels
the varsity on Friday nights?
It feels really good to be able to put in work during the week and off seasons and then see the results of them during the season.
And how have you enjoyed the 4-0 start that we have so far?
It feels really good to be able to contribute to that.
Yeah, you guys have done very well this season. I thank you guys for joining us this week. Again, these are your players of the week for the Woodstock Wolverine game. We congratulate them and wish them luck the rest of the season. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's look a little bit ahead. We got the game coming up here in the Den, our last non-region game, and this will be versus the Campbell Spartans. I believe, as I saw on Friday night, they're 1-3, so obviously not the record we have. But as you say every week, we don't want to take anybody lightly. How are you preparing for this Friday night?
Well, athletically, they're the most athletic team we've played this year. From top to bottom, just physically on the hoof, they're the best looking team that we played this year. From position to position, for outside receivers to slot receivers to offensive, defensive line to linebackers, they look very impressive on film. They all run really, really well. A busted play can be 6 for them on offense. So we've got to do a great job defensively of keeping everything in front of us and not letting a busted play, not letting one of them loose down the sideline, because they've got 5 guys on offense that if they get into open field, they can score. Then defensively, they base out of a 3-3 stack, which is something that offensively we're going to have to change our blocking schemes and blocking rules. That's really the only defensive front that we'll have to change some of our rules for to block. But we've blocked that this summer in the FCA camp, and we also blocked it versus Hiram early in the year. So again, they present challenges to us athletically. Hopefully we can just get on the field and be disciplined and take care of the football offensively, and then limit the big plays from them when they're on offense.
And speak about the psychology of this game, this being your last region game. And again, they're 1-3, so you don't want to take them lightly, but these kids are chomping at the bit to get at region play. I'm sure they are. They see what the other teams in our region are doing against non-region competition, and I'm sure they want to get at it. Are you trying to guard from overconfidence going into this week with them?
Well, we tell our kids, every day, every play, every game, that we have to focus on one game at a time. When somebody asks me, Coach, who do you play your first region game? I said, I don't know. I know we got Campbell this week,
right.
And that's all I focus on as a coach, and that's what we try to do with our players. We try to get them to zero in on who we're playing that week, because each week poses a different challenge. And, Campbell poses a different challenge than what Woodstock does. And then once we get to region play, we'll break down those films and those opponents week by week, and we'll focus on it game by game. And we told our kids last Friday night that at the end of the game, we're either going to be a 3-1 team or a 4-0 team. And same thing going into this week. We're going to be 5-0 going into fall break, going into region play, or we're going to be 4-1. And nobody can answer that except our players on the field.
And speaking to that, I think their mindset going into region play will be a lot better if we go 5-0 versus 4-1.
Oh, yeah.
So I would encourage them to think about that. Talk a little bit, last question, about just being, what your surprises are so far, relative to the 4-0. I know you want to win every game. I know you want to win every play, win every down, and so on and so forth. But are you at all surprised with our start? Are you comfortable where we're at? I know you all want to get better all the time, every game, every play. But any surprises so far to you?
Well, we expected to be 4-0 going into our 5th region game, and we expect to be 5-0 after this week. If anybody ever comes out and says, guys, we want to be 3-2 at the end of non-region play, then that's not the guy I want to play for.
Right.
We expect to win every game that we play in, and because we train and we prepare to win every Friday night, and our kids have done everything we've asked them to do. you know, from a training standpoint to a preparation standpoint to doing film before school on Mondays to doing film sometimes during class. And, you know, we put installs up and expect these guys to be watching film every week, and we trust that they do that. And we send little notes to them through our film, as well as our upcoming opponent. So I think that our kids have done a great job preparing week in and week out. There's not really, you know, any surprises. We've, at the beginning of the year, you know, being with basically a whole new offense, a whole new defense, new special teams, new way to train in the weight room. You know, we expected some growing pains, and we had some growing pains in our spring game, you know, versus Rome, and we're still having some growing pains right now on the field. With, you know, still making different mistakes that we shouldn't be making, but you know. Right now, we don't want to peak right now in the fifth game of the year. We want to peak at the end of region play. So as long as our kids are continually getting better every week and grinding and doing what they're supposed to do in the weight room, in the classroom, and on the field, then that's all we can ask of them right now. And we'll let the scoreboard speak for itself every Friday night. And these guys have done a great job so far, taking on everything that we've asked them to do. And I told them, you know, my dad growing up, I knew my dad loved me, but you know, as a man, he never told me a whole lot. Hey, I love you. So I tell these guys all the time how much I love them, because it's tough to play football, and it's extremely tough to play football for me. You know, so I'm kind of a different cat sometimes on the field that a lot of people don't see, but our players see it. But I want them to know every day how much I care for them, how much that I love them. But at the same time, if they do something wrong on the field, then I tell them to listen to what we say, not how we say it, because we're competitors too. So we want to win every play, every game as well. So, but our kids have done a great job, you know, taking coaching, and with pretty much a whole new coaching staff from where we were last year.
And with everything that is new, we have this new head football coach right here who has brought a lot of enthusiasm to the Wolfpack football program, and we certainly appreciate it. Coach Bryant, thank you for joining me again this week. We look forward to our upcoming game here in the Den, Friday night, 7:30 versus the Campbell Spartans. And then we will have our fall break. We'll be off the following week. We'll come to you after the Campbell game to review that game and review our first region game coming up after we get done with the fall break. So thanks for joining us. We look forward to everybody being here in the Den on Friday night. And as our last words as we sign off, go Pack!
I just want to win.